It's the truth. You are all a bunch of slaves, and you don't even know it. You people here in America, you're crazy. You believe anything they tell you. And you run around with your little flags, we're free, we're free, we're free. Really? Do you realize that during the course of your lifetime, of a typical American's lifetime, the hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of hours he spends working, most people work 40, some people work 60 or more hours a week. Nowadays you have to work 60 hours a week to afford a home, 2 wages, 60 hours a week to afford a home nowadays. Most people, and if you can't or are not willing to do that, you don't own a home. It's at the point now where most Americans don't own their own home. Do you realize during the course of your lifetime, with simple hand tools, you could have built several dozen houses? Putting it all together, painting the walls, you could have built, with the amount of hours that you've worked, you could have built several dozen houses. You're all slaves, and you don't even know it. Oh no, we got the Constitution. That's exactly what it is. The Constitution, okay? This country was created as a slave colony, okay? The Constitution is that it's a constitution. Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal and have indelible rights. Was a slaver. He was one of the slave masters. He had several hundred slaves. He tortured his slaves. He raped his women slaves. Maybe even raped some of his male slaves. I don't know. I know Washington was a homosexual who used to have sex with one of his male slaves on a regular basis. And this is well established. They found his love letters. Most of you people, what you've been told is pretty much the exact opposite of the truth. This country was created as a slave colony. Okay? It started in 1492. The Jews got kicked out of Spain. Okay? That's when it started. They had no place to go. Many of them went to Portugal. Many of them became what they call crypto-Jews. They pretended to be Catholic outwardly while they were actually Jews. They realized that the game was still going on, okay? Well, they had to find some place to go. So they started coming to the Americas. Just happens to be the year Columbus discovered America. Okay? Columbus didn't discover anything, okay? America was known about forever. Okay, there's pictographs that show that there were trade routes between America and going across the Atlantic and even across the Pacific. For hundreds and even thousands of years. We found there's remnants of traces of Viking settlements and rune stones that going back at least hundreds of years before Columbus got here. Okay, the plan was to get rid of the indigenous peoples and to create slave colonies, which is what they did. They completely wiped out the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean and wiped out a large percentage of the ones in the Americas. The reason why that, for wiping out the buffalo so that the Indians would starve. You notice, you go in the Caribbean, 70 to 90% of the Caribbean is black. These are the remnants of the slaves. You won't find any natives. You don't find any American Indians, any natives, any indigenous peoples. They're gone. They were completely wiped out. These were the pirates. The pirates were a secret society. They weren't the swashbucklers like you see, Pirates of the Caribbean. These characters that are being romanticized in the movies nowadays, with the eye patches and peg legs and going around going hard. They were a secret society. You think it's a coincidence that the symbol of skull and bones just happens to be the same thing that the pirates is the fire flag? They're the same people. Okay, it's the same secret society, and they're doing some of the same thing. They decided. They quit wiping out the indigenous people. I guess they figured that they don't need to anymore. They locked them all into these concentration camps. They've locked them all into these reservations, and they're not a problem anymore. So we'll just let them sit there and rot until they die off. I guess that's the plan. Anyway, getting back to the same thing. Like I said, you're slaves, and you don't even know it. What can you do about it? Well, you're not going to do anything about it. Okay. What you need to do is, you need to get and fight back and overthrow this slave economy in this slave country. But you're not going to do that because you've been programmed and brainwashed to believe that you're not a slave, and so you're not going to fight back against slavery when you don't believe you're a slave. I try to tell you the truth about things, and you call me an asshole. You call me an idiot. You call me a fucking idiot. You call me a moron, an anti-Semite, a hate monger. You call me a racist, and all I'm doing is telling you the truth. They're lying to you every day, and you believe everything they tell you. I'm telling you the truth, and all you do is insult me. You're going to, just like the blacks in the South, back in the slave days, they believed that God put them on earth to serve the white man, to be raped, to be tortured, and killed by the white man, and used and abused. They believed that that's what God put them on earth, because that's what they're taught. And they accepted that as their fate. You know, the thing about slavery is everybody becomes a slave. Everybody. And the slave masters become slaves. They're slaves to the people above them. They have to do what they're told. And if they don't toe the line and do what they're told, they're punished or eliminated. You know, even the top slave master, whoever that is, you know, the Rothschilds, Satan, evil aliens, whoever they are, they're slaves too. They can't let those puppet strings go for a second, or they'll lose control of the whole thing. So they're slaves. They're slaves to holding those strings. See, the whole system is just, it's a snowballed thing. It's just out of control. Everybody's miserable, including the slave masters are miserable. You know, they may have more money, but they're slaves too. They live miserable. Most of these slave masters, how many of them live to a ripe old age? Well, there's a few of them that do. A lot of them end up being snuffed. You know, they piss off, you know, the gangster above them, and they get killed. A lot of them are drug addicts, alcoholics, and they die from drug abuse and stuff. They're all slaves. Everybody's a slave. This whole system is out of control. And I'm not going to get into where this started to begin with, but it starts with paranoia, because the need to control others is actually, it comes from the insecurity complex. And as people get victimized, their way of feeling that they can deal with that is to try to control and enslave others. And that's not the real way to get true freedom. But that's what people do. And that's how this thing starts, and it snowballs out of control. And pretty soon, you know, and the more these people have to crack down and enslave people, the more people try to rise up against them and fight back. And so now these people get paranoid because people are trying to kill them and fight back. And so then they got to crack down even more, which causes more discontent. It snowballs out of control. What's the solution? I don't know. I think probably the best solution is people like me just trying to teach people common sense, and maybe people will wake up and someday and say, hey, you know, let's drop this stuff. Let's stop this control crap where we have to control everybody, you know.
And all this talk of aliens and UFOs and all that is just a weird type of compounding disinformation story where they actually throw the material out and then deny that it exists, so the whole thing just becomes a self-consuming lie, and nobody realizes it's really actually Earthlings doing this stuff. But of course that's all, you know, Art Bell world, so I won't get too hard into it. But these are all the things that pop up when you get into this electrical world. And it's my conclusion that that's the main reason why all electrical research has been stopped and swept up. It's because the possibilities are incredible. Absolutely incredible. It's a great story. Art Bell is an entertainer. Art Bell is an entertainer, like Michael Savage. If you look at electrical history, okay, you can see it was just a ball of confusion for 300 or 400 years in Europe where, you know, such things were observed. Obviously, you know, the Hawaiians and the Aborigines weren't doing much experimentation. It all came out of that neighborhood. And then it just, boom, took off. And it became almost like a fad that everybody in France was wearing lightning rods on their hat. It resulted in this social reaction of complete amazement and partying, like when the telegraph line was finally sent across the ocean and all that. There's massive effects. There were riots on the street when Einstein and Darwin presented their theories to the public. See, all these things have disappeared from the history books. There was one meeting where all these guys were together, and they felt that within a matter of months, with Steinmetz's work and Tesla's work and all the stuff that was being discovered by Heaviside and all these other people, it was a matter of months before a rotating apparatus was going to be built that provided electricity without requiring a prime mover.
And what happened?
It just basically, step by step, because of the physicists and Einstein and all that, just got chopped and chopped and chopped, and so eventually electricity has been declared impossible to even exist. Electrical device that's pulling the elevators up and down, running the blowers, powering these light bulbs, or any of that stuff at all, was all invented by Edison and Tesla and a few other guys.
Who was finished shopping?
Well, I don't know, figure it out. Well, all I can do is speak from experience, okay? Everything I've built has been destroyed.
Right.
Let me finish. Okay, I'm just going to speak from my experience, okay? Everything I built has been destroyed, okay? People have been hounding me and harassing me my whole life, ever since I was 6 years old, even before I came up with anything. It took a while to figure out why all this worked, okay? And I won't get into it. But I'll get into a specific example, okay? The thing is when I was a child, okay, I wasn't interested in riding bicycles or kites. I didn't need to go goo goo gaga, see Dick run, see Jane run in the classroom because I was too busy reading my father's naval and electronic engineering books. That's how I learned to read. I just sat down to open the books and read them. I don't know where I learned how, whatever, that's immaterial, that's just what I did. I probably got enough out of the kindergarten class or something. Okay, when I was 12 years old, Pacific Gas and Electric took me on in a private tutoring special education situation. Okay, and then the phone company came next. Once I had all my federal licenses when I was in high school, the phone company came in with a couple of spooks that looked like some CIA guys with, you know, the gun in their pants, but not quite. You know, where's Eric Dollard? You know, and a couple of stunts that me and my buddies pulled the week before. I was not feeling happy. And they go, we want you to attend this meeting, special meeting. And it just kept going and going like that. And then RCA came in Bolinas, okay? And when I was 17 years old, I was completely absorbed into the station. I could come in there any time of day or night, get parts I needed for experiments, had the keys to the gate, so we could party on the beach, all these type of things, okay? RCA, the phone company, 1970, what me and my friends called the day the music died, okay? All those companies started going down like that. So what I did is I managed to glom on to a couple of corporate engineering executives in these companies, okay, and told them what I had set out to do, electrically researching, and I had the full backing of these big corporations. RCA gave me all of their equipment in Bolinas, except what was actually online. 25 tons of apparatus.
To do what?
For my research. Transformers that stood 7, 8 feet high. There's a few people here that were with me in that episode. Actually, only one person. I don't know where she is right now. But that's it. Nobody, that's all gone. There's no C or belief or anything. An environmental organization came in, seized the whole situation, hired high school vandals to smash all the equipment with hammers and axes, spread the mercury and the PCBs all over the floor, the environmental saviors, smashed everything, cut all the cables, dumpstered all the notebooks, tried to make sure I had no place to live in town.
Yeah, but they were hired by...
No, they own the place now. They just simply took it over and then pushed RCA, what was left of it, to the other side of the wall.
Yeah, but then they were hired by other people who were hired by other people.
Well, that's all for that's for you to figure out. I'm just leading the trail. You go talk to these people, okay? You go to Bolinas and you go to the RCA station and you call themselves Commonweal. You talk to them and get their story. That's how you deal with those type of people. I'm a scientist and an engineer. Okay, I can't speculate, otherwise I just burn my whole life up chasing UFOs and space people and Soviet Tesla scalar conspiracies. You know what I mean? So what it finally evolved to is a guy and a friend of mine got together with me and we went with the videotape camera, okay, and went out into RCA to get pictures of the last of the antenna field and everything before it was finally smashed down. Well, in the process of this, by some weird turn of events that I won't get into because it sounds like voodoo, it finally resulted into the chief park ranger himself, Mr. Sansing, searches the entire 3,000-acre antenna field, which has been my personal rat hole for 30 years, to find the hated Mr. Dollard. And he finally does. He finds us down in the ravine, taking a break, where the deer hang out. Not easy to find. It must have took him at least an hour, worrying about tire pungees and low-hanging wires and the whole thing. And they found me, and he did that so he could come up to me and said, quote, Mr. Dollard, there will be no more electrical research done here ever again. Do you understand, Mr. Dollard? You know what I told him? No. And it didn't stop there. So you figure it out.
Holy Father.
Forgive me. I'm such a fool.
I'm informing you as the devil. Jesus can't save you.
The Vatican survives thanks to hyperbole.
The Pope's crown represents a very specific shit. It's a triple tiara. It states that your soul is owned, your body's owned, the land is owned by the Pope, that he's God on earth.
Holy Father.
Such a fool.
Holy Father.
Such a fool.
Accident. There are no accidents.
Yes or no?
You said that already.
They don't want you thinking too much.
Yes.
It's not healthy when you think too much. You need to drink your beer, watch a ball game, and shut up. And stay out of the way so your masters don't have to put up with you. That's why they give you all the problems every day with all the horrible things that are happening, the wars, the violence, and the economy is collapsing and all that. That's to keep you as a human busy. So that keeps you out of their world. That keeps you out of their line of fire. They have important things to do. They're running the earth, and they don't need you to come poking your nose around. So they make sure you got plenty to be concerned about. Stay home and drink your beer and watch a ball game. Especially are they concerned about young people because they're young, they're strong, they got a lot of energy, and there's millions of them. There's millions of these young people. So they want to give the young people sports. Give them a ball. So they go out and play ball games. Don't go out and play ball because they got a lot of energy, and so you need to dissipate that energy. Give them a football or a baseball or a ping pong ball or a bowling ball or a golf ball or a soccer ball. Give them a ball and tell them to go out and play ball. They got to learn to be a team player. That means you go along to get along with whatever your boss tells you because they don't need you to think too much. They just tell you what to do. And that's why when you go to college, you learn what to kiss and when. You don't get an education. You learn who the boss is. And you get yourself in line or you go into jail. The world you live in is so corrupt and evil. And most people have not even taken 60 seconds to think about where they are, how they got here, where they've come from, and where you're going to go when you die. People never thought about it. They're just scared to death to die. Then you pop out, now you're gone, and nobody knows where you came from. You didn't know what you were doing when you were here, and you have no idea where you're going when you leave here. You just popped in and popped out, did what you're supposed to do, and drink your beer, and watch the TV shows, and bounce your ball, and go to the ball game. That's all you're supposed to know. So keep your nose out of the boss's business. Yes. The guys who run this planet, like George Carlin said, it's a big club, the guys who run this world. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. So keep your mouth shut. Don't ask any questions. Make sure the kids have got plenty of drugs and plenty of alcohol and sex, pornography. Make sure all the people got plenty of things to keep their minds occupied and dissipate their energy. Make sure all the older guys have got Viagra, and make sure they got all the. Make sure they've got all the stuff that the young kids take for granted. Make sure the old guys have got plenty of their drugs for sex too, and their alcohol, and make sure they got a liquor store on every corner. Make sure the people are happy. The leaders are a bunch of old, lying, filthy criminals running their mafiosis and gangster organizations called government.
Yes.
So you make sure the kids are all fed their drugs and their alcohol and their sex, the ball games and sports, and just dissipate them.
This is
Keep
quite
them
literally.
so ignorant and so stupid and so ignorant that they wouldn't know how to get out of a paper bag. So that today, most people do not have brains enough to know they're even alive. They just do what they do. They get up and they go to work, and they do what they do. They come home, they're broke, and one day they die. And they don't realize that the church was in charge of you when you were born, when you got married, and when you die. As the church is always there. The church is there when you were born. The church is there when you get married. The church is there when you die. Why? Because the church is an organization set up by government to make sure you stay in line and be in compliance. You need to be in compliance, meaning you need to do what I tell you to do, period. Keep them on drugs and shooting each other and give them a bunch of titties and assholes and drugs. Yeah, give them the drugs. Make sure they got plenty of drugs and plenty of alcohol and plenty of rap music and all that shit. And just fuck them. Let them have a good time on that. But don't teach them any.
Michael Tellinger, scientist in the true sense of the word, never shying away from controversial issues. He's scrutinizing every clue very meticulously after a 30-year-long obsession with the origins of humankind and the genetics anomalies. He wrote Slave Species of the Gods, and his latest, of course, Temples of the African Gods. We're going to have some fun tonight talking with you, Michael. Welcome back.
Hello, George. Lovely to be speaking to you again.
It's an incredible story, coming here to mine gold for their atmosphere, finding out that they didn't want to do it themselves, so they needed to alter the species that happened to have been on our planet at the time, and voila, here we are, all of a sudden.
We certainly cloned, and there was a specific malicious intent in the cloning, and it was to do with being slaves, so we had to be smart enough to follow orders, and not to forget our instructions, not to get bored and wander off and start picking our noses and forgetting what we have to do, and also have the capacity to understand fear, because, you can't tell a dog, if you don't do this, I'm going to beat you up when I come back in an hour, because they don't understand that. So the species that was created had to understand that if they didn't perform their task, they would be punished. But what they needed to do is to create a creature and a species, a slave species, that was capable of taking instructions, following orders, and doing the job that they needed to do. Now, when people ask, well, why didn't they just use machines if they were so advanced? Well, you can't train machines to climb down a hole and fetch that over there and bring it here. Machines can only perform, basic things. So yes, they can be technologically advanced. You can levitate things, and you can cut. You can have advanced laser beams or laser technology that could cut incredible holes in the ground and so forth. But then somebody needs to go and do the hard work, and that's what the slaves were for. And they cloned them in what I believe to have discovered these cloning tanks here in southern Africa, that are scattered among these ruins.
And what do you think? What age did they start working? 15, 12, 20? What do you think? And did they have to wait that long for that to happen?
Good question. No, they didn't. They didn't clone them into babies. You can imagine, you're not going to clone babies, so you wipe their bums and wipe their noses and look after them until they're old enough to go to work in the mines.
So they came out as adults right away.
That's right. Just like in the many sci-fi movies, you see in the vaults of the UFOs and in the vaults somewhere, these giant amniotic sacs hanging with large humanoid beings hanging in them. That's it. That's what we're dealing with here, George.
Okay, that's it.
It's mind-blowing. And it took 9 months from 0 to full-grown adults that would come out of that as a baby, obviously. So they would have to teach them to walk. They'd have to teach them to understand and comprehend, and teach them to use the tools and the skills, and then probably within a few months or few weeks, put them to work. And it was only when we needed to procreate ourselves, when they realized they weren't cloning these slave species fast enough, they said, hold on, we need to allow them to procreate on their own because we can't clone them fast enough. So that's when they took the famous story in the Bible when they put Adam into a deep sleep, and, well, not in the Bible, the Sumerian tablets tell us a lot more detail about that, Sitchin's work, how they put Adamu into a deep sleep, they took the essence out of his rib, and I believe it would have been some bone marrow, because they've already created the DNA. They're not going to go back into the lab and recreate the same kind of DNA to create a female species, right? A female partner for them, the male species, which incidentally also suggests that the first humans cloned were only males, all male, and probably hermaphroditic, without any sexual organs, and asexual. And it was only when they wanted them to procreate that they took the DNA, took the essence out of the bone marrow, added the 23rd chromosome, the X and the Y chromosome, the male sex and the male and the female sex chromosomes, that they then added to the species and basically re-engineered the species and created the female counterpart so they could procreate. At which point they probably put them into this place, some sort of a garden or an observation tank or a camp where they could see how they would get on and if they would copulate and create offspring, and if the female wouldn't eat the male after they copulated, which many species do.
No, that's true. They do that.
Yeah, so the story of human origins, it gets really gruesome to people that are not prepared to hear this kind of stuff, when they believe the beautiful story of Adam and Eve and the fairy tale kind of story. It is far from that. What's been going on the planet is a long manipulation of beings, and activity of extraterrestrial activity has been going on for a long time. Adam's calendar, based on that 40 Shah arrival, puts it at about 285,000 years. So Adam's calendar is 285,000 years old. But the activity on planet Earth goes back millions and millions of years, because I've shown in a video clip on my YouTube channel that giant footprint that's about 2 hours drive from where I live. That footprint is in rough granite, and that footprint is about 4 feet tall, which suggests that whoever made that footprint would have been about 7.5 meters, or 23 feet tall. So the history of this planet is so strange and so different from what most of us could possibly fathom or imagine. Ancient times and epochs where there were huge battles taking place in the sky between the gods and between the gods and the humans and so forth. So the history of this planet is truly far more mysterious and spectacular than most of us could imagine. It seems now, with more research, that the Anunnaki were not only malicious, they used the gold in the form of white powder of gold, monoatomic form of gold. They have committed a great sin against all of humanity. And for what they've done here on Earth, they've been cast out of the book of life by other beings of consciousness. We are really a species in great trouble. And we're not in great trouble because of our benevolence and because of our loving nature and our loving humanness. We're in trouble because we are manipulated and controlled and abused beyond our wildest belief. Every aspect of our lives, every aspect of our humanness has been hijacked and abused, not just recently. This has been going on for thousands and thousands of years. Our entire human existence, and the reason we're here is for one reason only, in this form and shape that we're in today, is for the mining of gold. And it still continues.
It still continues,
as I told you, we don't know what happens to the gold once it leaves the gold mine. The humanity is under severe attack, and we can't continue living as we are. It's so mind-blowing as to how much gold is actually coming out of South Africa. We don't actually know how much gold comes out of South Africa. And the official amount of gold that's mined in South Africa every year is around 250 tons. That's the official amount of gold. And you can imagine how much unofficial gold is mined and exported in ways that we don't understand. Remember that just across from not far from Johannesburg and across the border in Botswana is a secret runway, that's one of the longest runways in the world, in the middle of nowhere. And you've got to ask yourself, well, what is that runway doing there in the middle of nowhere? It is what I've been actually calling. It's one of the best kept secrets of the Illuminati. And boy, have they done a good job to keep this a good secret from the rest of the world.
They sure have. They sure have indeed.
So it's important to note that pretty much everything we get in these ancient texts, the Bible included, obviously, is encoded information. It's deeply encoded with occult and mystical knowledge and information for us to understand once we start to wake up. So, and anyone or anything or any god-like entity that tries to assert its control over you and humanity, and especially if they exhibit any signs of physical desire or desire for physical things, like burnt offerings. Bring me burnt offerings and make sure you put salt on it, otherwise I will smite you. I mean, that's just an insane thought, to think that God, the divine source of all things, was instructing, people to go and kill a sheep and throw it on the barbecue and bring it to me well salted because I'm hungry.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
It's crazy. And especially also in Genesis 2, and this is a good example that I use all the time, this is the first reference to gold that we get in the Bible. And the reference to gold does not come from humans. It comes from the gods, or from God, as it's referred to in the singular form, which is incorrect. And in Genesis 2, the gods say to Adam, hey, there's a place called Havilah, there's land called Havilah, where the land is really fertile, there's water, and it's a great land, but also there's gold, buddy. And I want you to go there because I want you to dig the gold for me, because that's in essence what we're being told there. And remember that in Genesis 2, when Adam is introduced to the concept of gold, he is alone on earth. He had not yet been fashioned from his rib. So that gives us an idea that Adam was digging gold as a slave species for a long period of time before Eve was created so that they could procreate. We don't have to be trapped here, and it's only when you know this, when you realize that you're trapped, that you're a slave, that you are being controlled. Only when you realize that you can free yourself. The light will set you free. Knowledge will set you free. And none are more enslaved than those who believe they are free. And I believe that there are definitely Anunnaki factions that have turned against the original invasion of this planet. There are those that have remained behind, often referred to as Anunnaki remnants, that are desperately holding on to power, and they could be the ones that are actually behind the absolute control of humanity, sitting behind our governments, doing all the ugly stuff to us human beings through their corporations. And then there are the other ones that have also risen in consciousness, who have also realized that what they did here was completely against the divine plan, and are now trying to resolve and fix the problems that they've created on planet Earth. There's definitely a struggle for Earth, and some people call it a battle for Earth going on. There's no doubt in my mind, but I believe ultimately it is our rise in consciousness and realizing that we are divine beings at our soul, at our core, at our DNA structure. We are divine beings of light and infinite love, and that will ultimately prevail.
12 years ago, I was actually abducted by extraterrestrials. I didn't know who they were until once they took me. And I found out later they call themselves the Anunnaki.
Aha.
And they're 9 feet tall. The fellow that I spoke to actually looks very human. And actually he was blonde-haired and a beard. And he called themselves the L. And they know everything that's going on. They live for 1,000 years. Their machinery is way advanced. They levitate above the ground. The people are just like us, because they look like giant aliens, with the big head and the black eyes. And they were human, like I said before. And I asked them, well, why are you wearing this huge helmet? And he said, because our sun's rays blind their eyes. Their eyes are like a bright blue. Yeah. And so they have a difficulty living on our planet, though, that enslaved the people. They would use the men for the gold, to mine the gold.
Someone who wants to keep us here on Earth, trapped in these physical bodies. As long as you're suffering in some sort of way, as long as you have some negative emotions in your head, it's all fine. But one day, if you get out and you do something, this is the only time when you get most of their attention. This one you're like, hey, that human got out. What happened? And all of a sudden you become a target. Now you got their attention, and they're like, why did this human got out? And what happened? And how can we keep them back in? Because we don't want it from ever happening ever again. Because humans, or any powerful being who can get out and be out in the multiverse, have powers. Powers to create things, to destroy things, to do anything you want. Your imagination and everything you can think of can be created. So for them, this is the biggest nightmare, because you're the one who can see them and like, oh yeah, they're trying to trap us. And you can change it. You can attack them, you can change their structures, you can change their system, you can take them out yourself, just with your thoughts. And the thing is, a lot of people, when they go out of body the first time, they're not that aware of the whole subject, really. They're aware that, like, oh look, my body, cool, woo! And they get so into the present time, they don't think about some entities are trying to take over Earth, or some entities controlling something. No. People get out and they just want to be in the present moment. They just want to focus on right now, which is, right now I just got out of body. Wow, this is so fun. And they want to fly, they want to explore, they want to do something. They're not focused on some big bad guy trying to attack Earth and like take over the planet. No one does. And so people, when they get out, they want to focus on having fun, exploring. We want to explore, we want to do something, we want to find out things. We don't really think about like, oh, I just got out of the ant farm. Like, we've been in a human farm, now what? Like, this is not the first thing that comes to your mind, you just want to explore and do something. But once we get out, we become the target, because other beings are aware of us, are aware of our abilities, are aware of our capabilities, and are aware of all the things that you can change just with your thought alone. They don't want that. They want you to be trapped, they want to watch you, keep, to have your attention, and like, once they can control your life, it's fun. But once you get out, this is when they're alerted. And so for a lot of beings, when they get out of body, The first time, it's going to be probably easy and successful. But after that, now you've got their attention. Now you became a target. Now they want to keep you inside. And it's not just getting out of body. It's this world. When you look at like, okay, we have beings out over here on Earth who find out a bit more than they should know. Those who run the system, they don't like us knowing about certain things. They don't like us talking about certain things. You talk about, chemtrails or possibility of flat Earth or some, 5G, of all the things that it can do. Epstein case. Epstein didn't kill himself. You call out something, you talk about the pedophilia of politicians and all those pedophiles, all these transgender things and all the races and once you talk about usual stuff, it's okay. Once you talk about something that gets their attention, they want to quiet you down. Some people get shadow banned, some people get shut off and they had their channels deleted. Some people are killed. Accidentally somehow the super healthy person had a heart attack. And it's okay, CIA just had this sort of dart gun that can cause the heart attack, but it's not a big deal. Don't look there. You try to share the inventions, oh look, I found the water engine is working way better than all the things we have right now. Look at this. And you're like, you're gonna run a business. We have to eliminate that motherfucker, otherwise, he's gonna really mess us up. If we talk about these things, they're trying to scare us, they're trying to cause chaos, they're trying to divide people. Everything's keeping people in division, in the chaos and stuff, and that's what they want. If all of us would get united, it doesn't matter who you are, I don't care about your sex, I don't care about your skin color, I don't care about your beliefs, but as long as you and I are in peace and in agreement that all of us should be together, united, and stand for those who are trying to take over the world, take everything that belongs to you. But if people are able to talk about it and be loud about it, that's what they don't like. Don't want you to do that again. This is when they want to keep you in this cage, in this human farm. Because as long as they can keep you in the farm, as long as we are the cattle for them to feed off from, we are just a resource for them. They can control us, they can mess with us, and all the negative energy we can get, it's going to feed them. So if we're able to fight back and not give up, it's a big thing. So they try to target us because they want to scare us. They scare us with the idea that we can get out. And as long as they can keep us here, as long as they can keep us trapped in this human farm, using us as a resource to feed themselves, that's when they win. For me, the biggest thing is fighting back. Not just, oh yeah, I'm going to find another way to do it, but also being loud about it, also talking about it, also take actions, and there's lots of different things to do to win. I'm not just saying not just out of body, but in the world and everything that's going on here on Earth, when you get out of body and other realms, because it also happens, and also in the whole multiverse. It's the same thing almost everywhere. It's just like a game. And as long as we're quiet, we're fine. But once we get out, once we do something, we get their attention. They don't want that. So, they're going to try to shut us up, keep us quiet, make us scared and afraid, and they will try to mess with us in lots of ways. And some people are able to get out of body, but they will not have the memory of the experience. And what happens is, you can get out of body, and entities out there, they might see you, and they might want to delete your memories. Make sure that, okay, he got out of body, he or she, but we don't want them remembering anything, so we're just gonna delete their memories, and once they get out, it's gonna be like, oh, I woke up, and cool. And you don't even think about hey, I got out of body, I have the knownness, I was out, I don't remember what it was. If we're able to recall those experiences, and recall the moment where entities actually deleted our memories, we have it out. Subconsciously, we have the whole memory. It's just that they, for a little short period of time, they will take it away. And there's lots of ways, having the quiet mind, revoking your agreements where they can mess with you, working on yourself, raising your vibration, doing all kinds of techniques of getting out more. But the thing is, don't give up. Do not give up and keep on fighting. Do not give up and keep on going if this is your goal. If you still want to get out, work on it, because they don't like beings being persistent. Their attention won't always be on you. They also want to focus on other people who will get out and probably get their attention elsewhere. So you keep trying to get out, and someone else will go, hey, I just popped out. And their attention, the spotlight goes on that person. So this is when you can get out. But keep doing that until you get the freedom. And if you can get out, you can actually sort of just feel the intention of who's trying to stop you. connect with that. Connect like, okay, who's trying to stop me? Who's limiting me? Who's targeting me? And just that thought alone, that connection, if you can get it, you can literally target those beings and get them out. Move them out of the way. So for me, there were those beings, there were like quite a few groups, quite a few like fleets of those spaceships and stuff who were targeting me, who did not want me to get out of body. And I could get out and I could track their energy. I could like, okay, yeah, here. I would feel some body sensations, I would feel something that like someone's targeting me. So all it takes for me is to focus on it and put an intention to teleport to them and just taking them out. So for me, it was easy because I had enough practice and I could like track them, take them out, and I'm free to go out. For a lot of people, they're being messed with and they don't really know what to do next. So, you know, one thing like, you know, work on your routines, work on your diet. I'm talking about eating oranges, but like it's not the only thing. Work on your lifestyle. Like I've made a video with Rich, and one of the biggest things is like, you know, getting rid of your present time problems. We have lots of things going on. You might park the car and like, you know, you just went home and you're trying to get out of body, but you remember that you parked the car where they might give you a ticket. You won't be able to get out of body because your attention is on, I might get a ticket. The right thing to do is to go out and move the car and get it to a safe spot. Is to take care of the present time issue, and once it's out, it's not going to be there in your mind, it's not going to interrupt you, it's not going to keep you here, because you're trying to get out of body, like, oh yeah, I'm trying this technique and stuff, and you can focus and stuff, but what happens is your attention is on the car, your attention is on here, on this realm. So if you get your issues out of the way, if you can focus on like, you know, just getting it all out and being free of like, you know, this case, this world, this right now, then you have the freedom to get out. That's what they don't want, which is why we have sort of, imagine this one big entity. And this one big entity is like a cluster of millions and billions of little entities, little things. And this whole cluster, this one entity is inside you. It's made out of millions. And those millions have different like labels and names. So what happens, you are moving in life, you can do anything. And you'll be feeling fine. But this entity inside you, it's feeding off of the negativity. It's not going to feel negative by itself, but it loves seeing you suffer. It's like a huge ball inside of you. They want to mess with you in any possible way. And you can walk in the street and everything's fine. And all of a sudden you see a person with a different color and you're like, oh, here they are again. Like, you know, and you might have a reaction. You might have like, oh, this country's filled with them. And what happens is not you reacting. It's not you. It's that entity inside you, bullying you, trying to make you think about all the negative things so that you would get a negative reaction. It's trying to bait you on all the negative stuff, because the more it can trigger you, the more it can cause you to focus on the negative here on Earth. Anything. Anything around you, anything inside you, anything from your past, anything. As long as it can get you triggered and think any possible negative thing, it wins. And your mission is to notice who is that big bad guy inside you, trying to trigger you all the time, and take control of it. Quiet it. Or you can even like, okay, here I am, and you know, you can do anything. And maybe you saw someone, you know, like spitting on the road, and you're like, oh, that person is like, and you have like tons of thoughts about what kind of person it is. Is it really you reacting, or is it that big bad guy trying to bully you and cause you to think about negative stuff and focus on it? Because all of a sudden, like, you know, there are like lots of things around you that are good. Someone like drops a ball on the ground. Is it that hard for you to go pick it up? Or are you gonna bitch them out and like still walk away and like, oh yeah, that guy's bullying, like, you know, or whatever? It's simple. You don't have to overreact and stuff, but the big bad guy inside of you, that entity cluster with tons of negative things around you in your life, they will try to trigger you in every possible way. And if you can stop reacting to it, if you can identify like, oh, you're trying to make me feel negative, huh? You're hungry for negativity, huh? Well, like, all at once is for you to feel negative. And if you will react, it wins. If you don't, they lose. And so the longer you can stay without being in the negative mode, the longer you win. And the longer you win, the weaker the being becomes. And so look at your life. How often are you feeling negative? How often are you trapped by that being? It's not you. But the thing is, this entity inside you is addicted to the negativity. It cannot live without negative stuff. The entity needs drama in your life, needs all the suffering, needs all kinds of negativity. And if you can do something to notice at the present time, like, oh, okay, it's not me reacting. It's that negative entity inside me wanting some drama, wanting some negativity. I would just shut up, I will quiet my mind, and I will not think about it. This is the only time when you win. And the more you can win, the lesser that being becomes, and eventually it leaves. So the more they can feed off from you, the more they win. The more control you have over yourself, over your emotions, and how you react, the more you win. And that's the whole game. For you to take control of yourself, your life, react to them less, and give yourself more power, because this is the only way. If they see you as a strong being who cannot react to a negative thing, even when you go out of body, they cannot mess with you in any way. Because you stop reacting, you stop being a victim, and that's the game. Stop being the victim. Stop getting so into negative place and just getting, oh, okay, big thing happened. The thing is, you're gonna feel that negative thing for like 10 seconds, and the longer you focus on it, the longer you're gonna feel. You can let go of it in 10 seconds and choose like, okay, that was bad, but you need to focus on all the good stuff in your life. You're still alive, you still have something, and you're trying to be positive as can be. But the thing is, you are creating your life, and you're creating what you react to. So, if you can focus on the good stuff, it doesn't matter what it is, you're killing off that big entity inside of you. And they cannot control you here, they cannot control you out there, and you win. So, here it is, these are my thoughts, I just wanted to answer the question, get engaged with my YouTube audience, and again, hopefully this was, something of value to you, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so share your thoughts, and talk to you soon.